Good morning, my friends. So today we are on day 2, lesson video with Nancy Wall. The greatest of them all. Anyway, I wanted to start by showing you how you've been doing some work with reading and how that's going to help you with your writing. So in reading, I know that you're thinking now about your different subtopics, and so I just want to confirm and add to that with what you've been learning with Miss Lauren, with Miss Jerson, that you when you are reading and you're compiling all this information, you've got to have a way to compartmentalize it for your writing, because otherwise it's going to be a hot mess. So when you read, it's very helpful sometimes to have a book that is sort of your go-to book, but you're never going to do the research with just one book. You're going to have more than one, and then you're going to need to take that information and sort of put it all together into a compartment that makes sense for you. And you have to read more than one book. It makes no sense for you to trust all the information for your research that you're going to use to write about a topic so vast, like whatever it is. For me, it's going to be penguins. And for you to write a topic about a topic that's that vast and only use one book, it's kind of seems a little silly. Because, for example, I was reading a book about Anne Frank, and then I picked up another book about Anne Frank, and they had 2 different birth dates. So I was like, okay, which one is it? I had to go to another book and another book until I finally found, okay, most of these books say it was this date. And then I even add an addendum to my piece that said that there is speculation, but it is widely believed that Anne Frank was born at this time. You might find that when you're reading about tigers or elephants or, gerbils, whatever it is that you're reading about. Or the amoeba. You don't even know what that is. You'll learn about it someday and you go, that sounds familiar. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you right now because I want to show you, first of all, a little graphic organizer, if you will, that I'd like for you to use. Okay, so this is called the Animal Research Project, and it's subtopics, page 1, and I also have a page 2. So this is basically the back of the page, but they say the same thing. It's just that I know that you're going to have more than one subtopic. So this is subtopic 1, this is subtopic 2, this is subtopic 3, and subtopic 4, and you might have more than that. I'll show you what I mean. Here's this book that I was reading about the penguins. I think it's the one that I was reading with you guys yesterday. Why isn't it? Here we go. This is the penguin. This is the emperor penguin. The life cycle of the emperor penguin. So we were reading this yesterday, or a couple of days ago. This actually has a table of contents. So, what is a penguin? The journey on ice. If I go to page 22, it's going to be growing in a group. If I go to page 27, life in the ocean. I don't really necessarily know specifically what I'm going to learn. It's not like it says all about the body, where they live, what. It's got it. The table of contents is showing the subtopic titles in a clever and interesting way, and I will teach you how to do that as well. But for now, we know that if we go to these pages, we're going to find that information. But now, if I go to a different book about penguins, here's the penguin. If I go to this, looks like a different penguin, by the way. So as I was reading it, it turns out that now there is this book at the South Pole, thousands of king penguins. Turns out if I start reading, I'm going to learn that there are many different types of penguins. I think it's like 19 different species of penguins. So it's the king penguin, it's the emperor penguin, there's the blue penguin, and they live in different places. Like I was telling you, I thought I read somewhere that they live in a cold place and a warm place. It turns out that they do. So while I'm reading this, I was like, oh, there's so much information. How am I going to put it all together? So what I wanted you to do was use this piece, the Animal Research Project subtopics page, use that to help you organize all of your ideas. So I'm going to read today this book, the one that doesn't have the table of contents, because I want to see if I can come up with my own. All right, so at the South Pole, thousands of king penguins stand on the wind and rain-whipped shores of a chain of small islands in the Antarctic Ocean. All right, so right now I know they live in the Antarctic Ocean. At least these do. They jabber so loudly that their deafening songs can be heard far away. Unable to fly, there we go. That confirms what I was thinking about the other day. The penguins waddle around the islands amid the strong odor that their colony, called a rookery, gives off. So I can think about where and where and how they live. And so I'm going to go to my research project right now, and I'm going to write down that I'm reading a book called The Penguin. Okay, I don't have a very good tabletop here. I actually have my laptop sitting on a pillow because I don't have a setup that I would like to have. Okay, so it's called The Penguin, and my subtopic is going to be where they live. So one of the jots that I just learned, and a great skill, is to read, close the book, and try to remember. Because otherwise you're going to be copying word for word what the other author said, and you're going to say that those are your words, and they're not. We'll talk about that later too, but you want to make sure that all of what you say is in your own words. So what do I remember about where they live? Well, I know they live in the Antarctic. That should really be a capital. I know they live in the Antarctic, and they live, which is a very cold place. Okay, it's south. I also know that they live in a colony, C-O-L-O-N-Y, called a rookery. And I think I'm gonna put that in bold because I want, when I'm typing, and if you're handwriting this because you've printed it out and you're writing it on a sheet of paper, just like this might be a vocabulary word, and maybe you'll have a glossary at the end of your book, and you're gonna want to put all those vocabulary words together. We'll talk about that also. See how much there is? There's like so much. Anyway, but we'll just take it one step at a time. The first step is, what are my subtopics? And I'm going to start to read different books to try and help me understand about where the penguin lives. So this book title is Where They Live, they're called The Penguin, Where They Live. They live in the Antarctic. They live in a colony called a rookery. And I'm going to go back to that book. It says, how does a bird population like this find food in such a harsh, unfriendly place? Oh, it's a harsh and unfriendly place. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to say in my subtopic that they live in it's a very cold place. Also, and according to this, because I'm not going to take the credit for those words, to the penguin, it's harsh and unfriendly. Okay, so now I'm going to not take the credit for using those words, harsh and unfriendly. I'm going to say that the Penguin book was the one that came up with that nice way of saying that it's not a good place to live. The icy seawater, rich in mineral salts and plankton, is abundant with schools of fish. So they spend a lot of their time in and around the sea. So I can say that that makes sense to me. Where do they live? They live in the Antarctic. Also, it's a very cold place. It's harsh and unfriendly. They live in a colony called a rookery, and they live near the sea and spend a lot of time there. I'm going to say, and spend a lot of time in and out of the water. That's how I'm going to synthesize the information from that book. Now, if I go to a different book now, and I want to see, oh, the coldest place on earth, I'm going to go to that page. This is all about the king penguin, right? Oh, here's that word colony. There are 17 species of penguins. This book is about emperor penguins. Like all penguins, emperor penguins live in groups called colonies. And so there's that. They travel, they raise their babies, they hunt. The coldest place on earth. A habitat is the natural place where an animal lives. An emperor penguin's habitat is the Southern Ocean. So the king penguin lives in the Antarctic. Oh, the Southern Ocean is also in the Antarctic. Okay, so I can say the king penguin also lives there. Antarctica is the most southern continent and the coldest place on Earth. The Southern Ocean is so cold that the surface freezes into large pieces of ice. These huge blocks of floating ice are called pack ice. When the emperor penguins leave the water, they often move onto pack ice. Oh, I'm going to go back to what I said in my little graphic organizer. I'm going to write, the book title is The Life Cycle of an Emperor Penguin. I'm just going to write it out quickly because you know my typing is not great. And another subtopic that I'm going to come up with is more about the habitat. Now, maybe up here it's where they live, and maybe the habitat is also where they live, but I'm going to put all this stuff together perhaps in one section in my book. But the fact that I learned is that it's so cold that ice forms in the water, and it's called pack ice. And I also learned that the penguins spend a lot of time on the pack ice. And I know I have some typos in here. You'll be handwriting this and you're probably gonna have spelling stuff all over the place. Don't worry about it right now. But in the end, when you actually publish this, we're going to expect you to have, really good third grade spelling, almost fourth grade actually. Okay. So you learned a lot of things here today, but one of the things that I want you to take away from this is that when you are writing, the way you're going to write about a topic that you're going to become an expert on is by doing a lot of reading with lots of books. And you have to take those books and sort of like sew together, synthesize all this information that you're getting from these different books. In doing so, you're going to want to come up with your own sort of compartments where you can put all this information. So, wow, I learned all this information about where they live. There's a subtopic. And everything that I learned about from all these books about where they live is going to go into that subtopic. I might get it from a book called The Life Cycle of the Emperor Penguins. I might get it from a book called All About Penguins. I might get it from a National Geographic book about penguins. But nonetheless, I'm going to learn all these different things about where they live. And I'm going to put all of that into one piece. I'm really using my hands a lot. This is very Italian of me. I'm using my hands. Anyway, okay, my friends. I hope you're enjoying this process. I love it. I think it's like this huge puzzle that you're putting together right now. And right now you're just working on the edges. You're gonna get all that stuff on the inside also pretty soon. All right. Have a lovely weekend, my friends.